Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. So let's give everyone 2 minutes to log in. If you're here, feel free to type your name in the chat, what company you're from, and where you're dialing from. I know for this session in particular, we will be having quite a diverse audience. So we will be having different audiences from different parts of Asia. We have a few in the panel, like Louis and Nikki, who's dialing from all over the globe. So it's really nice to that this community is able to bring everyone together. So let's just give everyone 2 more minutes to log in. Again, once you're inside the Zoom, feel free to type in your name in the chat. Tell us where you're from. Um, this community is quite, I would say it's a small world. So it's really nice that a lot of people typically know each other. So if you know a friend from your past company, say hi. No, feel free to put a shout out and say hi to everyone. Let me just see the names. Hi, Clark from iQor. Let's see who's here. Oh, we have a couple of new names. It's very exciting to see a couple of new names. Hi, Kenneth. Hi, Ivy. Hi, Kim. So again, if you just logged in, feel free to type in your name in the chat. Let's give everyone 1 more minute and then let's officially start the webinar. Type in where you're from, what company you're from, which part of the world you're dialing from, what you do as well at your current company. So just a quick introduction. My name is Blanche. I'm going to be the host of this webinar. And yes, it's 6:02. So I wanted to officially welcome everyone. We're back with yet another Recruitment Hackers webinar. We are very excited to have everyone in this community. Recruitment Hackers is really committed to solving the pains of recruiting in the high volume space and providing our audiences with actionable insights on how to improve the lives of your applicants and your recruiters. So again, feel free to introduce yourself. So for this session in particular, we will be putting a spotlight into one of the most common challenges in the high volume recruiting space, which is time to hire and reducing your time to hire from weeks to a couple of days. So especially in industries such as the BPO space and retail, where the competition for quality talent is fierce with a capital F, I would say, speed is extremely crucial. So if you don't get to your talents right away, chances are you're going to lose them to your competition, and it may affect or have a huge effect on your current hiring goals. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce our awesome panel for this afternoon. We have Aris Ocampo of TopPush. He's our Director of Customer Success, and he has experienced firsthand how most of our customers are able to hire and reduce their time to hire. So hi, Aris. How are
Hi
you
there.
today?
Doing good. Very excited to be here. Hi, Blanche. Hi, everyone. Hi to everyone who's here
Hi.
today.
Before we proceed, can you maybe name some of the customers, especially in the BPO space, that you've worked with? Just give us a hint, if you couldn't.
Well, we've typically worked with volume hiring companies here, not only in the Philippines but around the world. I'm seeing a lot of familiar companies on the chat. We have iQor. I'm guessing that this is Miss Cynthia's fan base from Clark. So hello to everyone. I'm seeing people from Quaphone, which are also customers of TalkPush. But most of the customers that we work with are really in the volume hiring space. So customers like Concentrix, Taskus, Genpact, Alorica, and many others. So very, very excited to share what I've seen throughout the years working at TalkPush and working with customers in recruitment.
Thank you for that, Aris. I'm sure he's going to be sharing more insights in a little bit. And since Aris mentioned that we have a bunch of attendees from iQor, I wanted to introduce our VIP guest for this afternoon, Miss Cynthia Maslian of iQor, Director of Talent Acquisition. Hi, Miss Cynthia. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon. I didn't know that a lot of my team members will be joining in. I didn't announce. But I guess the topic has been there, and I shout out to everybody from iQor, and thank you so much for the opportunity that TalkPush has given me to share share the insights that I have and be able to be of help also to those who are currently in the high volume recruitment space.
No, thank you, Miss Cynthia. We know you have a very fruitful talent acquisition career. You had years of industry experience, not only at iQor, but in the BPO space. So we're very excited to hear your thoughts. So we won't keep everyone waiting. Let's keep this discussion going. So I wanted to introduce your moderator for this afternoon, Nikki, our content manager at TopPush. So take it away, Nikki.
Thanks, Blanche. Thank you for an awesome introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're very excited about this topic, especially for the fact that we have Miss Cynthia here. So welcome again, Miss Cynthia, and thank you for gracing us with your presence. So we're just going to jump right ahead into discussion for today. So today we'll be talking about achieving efficiency in high volume hiring and reducing time to hire to 3 days and even less. So to begin the discussion, let's just go back to what used to happen in the recruitment space. Those traditional recruitment practices that volume hiring companies used to use to attract talent, engage them, and even try to meet their hiring goals. Previously, those practices were sufficient. They used to work. I mean, the hiring demands weren't as much as they used to be today. But in today's recruitment space, we know things are changing, hiring demands are increasing. The volume hiring space isn't what it used to be. Like, you have a lot of competitors right now vying for the same amount of talent. And we've seen that the pandemic has really even disrupted the space. There's a huge talent shortage happening. And therefore, those recruitment practices that used to work in the past are no longer sufficient. Let's just talk about those challenges that today's recruiters face. Can you share some light on them, Ms. Cynthia?
Oh yeah, so prior to the pandemic, I would say we were very much just relying on the traditional modes of recruitment. These are, your typical conduct of job fairs, go to the academe, go to your local LGU and, join them in their recruitment activities. You do your walk-in. It's typically just relying on the people getting into where your recruitment activity is going on, right? You invite them to the site, so it's really just based on the ability of your candidates to get into the place where you're doing your recruitment activity, right? So it's a little bit challenging because you would always count, okay, how many footfall do we have for today? So if you're not meeting your daily footfall target, you're gonna be screwed. That means that you're not gonna meet your recruitment numbers, right? And if there are a lot of events that gets canceled because of you have different factors, environmental factors that can typically just cancel out all of your recruitment activities. And when you do that, again, you're screwed, right? So and another channel that we rely on in the past would be referrals. And similarly, when you do your referral activities with the employees, you have to be there. You have to be on the ground, collecting all this information, collecting all these names, come up with different activities so that you can kind of hype it. And if you're not on the ground, you're not able to generate all these leads. So the leads generation activities, the traditional leads generation activities, create was a big challenge for us when we with the pandemic, right? So we were like closeted in our homes, but we still need to deliver, right? The demands for the hiring numbers during the pandemic increased. But one thing though that we were able to realize is that instead of the pandemic kind of limiting us to what we can do, it kind of opened a lot of doors, other potential sources. It kind of opened those sources for us, which in the past we were not able to leverage on, because of course the mindset is the candidates need to be in front of me. I need to be talking to them, things like that. So again, those traditional, I mean, we have moved on from those traditional activities, the traditional strategies, and a lot of the things that's happening right now, and this is across all the different players in the BPO space. We see them being creative and being innovative in using technology and different platforms to be able to generate leads and to still reach their hiring demands.
Yeah, sure. That's interesting. So let's talk about the methods of processing these leads, because previously, a lot of people used to rely on just using copious amount of spreadsheets to process the leads, or even getting on the phone and calling the leads and saying, okay, are you still interested? I want to ask you a few questions. But in the volume hiring space, that's no longer sufficient, especially if you have like a high demand. If you have to meet like 1,000, 2,000 in a month, and then you have to ask your recruiters to meet those hiring targets, but they don't feel empowered because they can't meet those goals depending on the traditional methods of processing these leads. So I want to know, looking at your experience, your vast, impressive years of experience in recruitment, how can we say we've changed or evolved over the years from relying on those traditional methods of processing the leads to trying to meet the demands of today's recruitment space?
Well, that has something to do now with how we leverage technology. But prior to leveraging technology, I would say that we had to prepare our teams to be able to utilize the technology that's available there. So you mentioned that yes, in the past we were relying on spreadsheets to gather leads, get the phone numbers, get those emails, and everybody would have would maintain their own database because of the fear that something might happen and we might lose those leads. But leveraging the right now, the I would say the CRM tools that we're using, the leads generation tools that we're currently using, allows us to kind of veer away from maintaining our individual spreadsheets, or notebooks of leads and things like that, but and have it all in a platform where it can readily be accessed by technically anyone. So if let's say it's not dependent on the on let's say the attendance of a recruiter for us to be able to, let's say, the leads that's sitting in a certain in the platform, right? Because this is something that can be shared with the other recruiters, and the recruiters can take on and tap all the leads that's there, unlike before. To your point, everybody has their own database. If the recruiter is absent, those leads that's sitting with her in her own database will not be tapped, right? So and another thing is, the recruiters need not be in the on site, right? So we have recruiters who are technically working from home. Have remote recruiters. Okay, for a while that was a little bit like something that we never thought it's gonna happen in a high volume space like in a BPO company. But this last 2 years, more than 2 years, in fact, it has proven that we are actually better off. I would say we're able to reach out. The outreach for candidates is actually more now that our recruiters are working in remotely. They have that flexibility to be able to to work at the comforts of their home, or maybe get out of their homes and kind of work outside, but still their productivity is there. Again, talking about productivity, the fact that we have a system that kind of tracks the productivity of the recruiters allows our recruitment leaders, to have a view also of what's happening. So there's that visibility of what's happening with the pipeline. Are the pipelines being processed, or are they just being wasted? Are they are they being tapped, or are they just being dispositioned? So you can technically have that. There's that full transparency in terms of what the recruiters are currently doing. So recruiters before, I mean, if they're not going to share their notes with you, you wouldn't know what they did with your leads, right? So right now, since you have a tool that kind of contains all the historical engagements that you've had with your candidates, with your leads, then somebody can just pick it up if this person was not processed, let's say yesterday, because the recruiter is out, and somebody can just take over, and then we can always check if there has been a gap in the process, what has been missed, or if there's a need for certain calibrations in terms of how these candidates are being processed. And at the same time, it also gives us a view of things that we need to improve in terms of ensuring that we give good positive candidate experience to all the candidates that gets into our pipeline.
I think that's awesome. That's very interesting. Looking at the fact that the candidate behavior as well is changing. So everyone wants attention. They want you to appreciate the fact that they are applying for your job. So previously, when people would apply for your job and you can just, let that slide, in the volume hiring space, you can afford to do that because you have to meet your volume, you have to meet your target. So even if the candidate isn't responding, you have to follow up, you have to go in there, re-engage, retap, and that's what automation is doing for you. That's what technology is doing for you. So Aris, I'm going to direct this point at you. Okay, looking at the fact that you have helped a lot of employers streamline their recruitment processes, you've helped them be more efficient, you've helped them realize that there are better ways that they can use to process leads, there are better ways that they can use to improve the experience, not just for candidates alone, but for your recruiters, because even as much as the technology is doing some of the work, your recruiters are the ones involved with converting these leads that you have attracted and turning them into hires. So I'm interested in knowing how technology can help people manage this volume of talent that they attract. Because I mean, if you have 2,000, 3,000, you can't just dump them on your recruiters and expect them to be able to process them with the limited resources that they have. So what can technology do to help you keep those talent pipelines viable and make sure that the candidates are not disappointed and end up dropping out of your talent pipelines, and then you can re-engage them or even retap them for the future? So what do you think that automation can help employers achieve?
Yeah, this is a very great question. And before I answer that, I'm going to say that I started my first job was actually that of a phone screener. And this was many years ago when we were using spreadsheets at the time. There's not much of a recruitment automation platform that is available at that time. And I remember very clearly that I would start my day being given a list of 200 leads by my boss. And my goal is to make sure that I'm able to schedule 30 people for the following day. So this is kind of a tough job because obviously at the start of my day as a recruiter, I'm very active and I'm very excited to call people. But as hours go by, obviously my energy levels would go down, and the amount or the level of phone screening and conversations I have with candidates over the phone would decline. For example, if it's already 2-3 p.m., I would just call candidate and say, hey, come here to our office tomorrow for a one-day hiring process, stuff like that. So the quality of screening that's being done manually, that declines. That means the output is inconsistent. So that's one area where automation can really come in. When an activity is being done by a machine, for example, you know that the result is always the same because it's calibrated. If the automation or the platform is programmed to filter candidates who do not meet minimum hiring qualifications, or for example, does not speak a certain level of English, then you do not expect it to book candidates who would not meet those qualifications for the following day. So number one is consistency. So automation helps teams or recruitment teams make sure that their output is consistent. That's number one. Number two, it allows them to scale their processes and scale their bandwidth. Before, I've observed that obviously when hiring ramps come in and maybe hiring demands would come in, companies would typically hire more people. Maybe during certain months of the year, they would need to hire contractors or maybe additional phone screeners because they know that we need to process more candidates, we need to hire more, so we need to have more people in the team. That's not necessarily the case anymore, especially if that existing team is backed up by automation or by a platform that allows them to scale their bandwidth. Because with automation, you're able to basically delegate the administrative tasks of the process, and then the team comes in either to do the high value tasks, maybe the final interviews, the assessments, or others, or maybe looking at where they could improve the process. So it also kind of upskills the recruiters. Instead of them having to do phone calls every day, they can really focus on much high value added tasks. So yeah, those two, it allows them to, the process becomes more consistent, the output becomes more consistent, and more than anything, it allows them to become more efficient in the end. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, let's talk about online traditional practices, for example. So, yes, Miss Cynthia, we're talking about the fact that previously in the past, you used to rely on word of mouth, referrals, job fairs, but that's no longer sufficient right now if you're looking to meet numbers. Especially the fact that most people, some of them don't even want to show up at your offices or show up at a physical location for interviews or something. They want you to do it online. I know that when you're recruiting for certain spaces, first thing they're going to ask you is, "Do you want me to come to your office for this interview? If it's not, I'm not going. I'm not going to show up." So you no longer have no longer have the luxury of job fairs alone for just meeting your numbers, or even just referrals alone, because hiring demands are changing. Candidate behavior has changed. A lot of people want you to meet them where they live. They don't want to be inconvenienced to come out or go searching for your applications or vacancies. They want you to make it more convenient for them. So can we just talk a little bit about how online recruitment practices have helped you meet your hiring goals?
Well, it's no secret. In the Philippines, Facebook is our number one job platform, I would say, because everybody. I think you can find anything that you want in Facebook, right? Just clicking on the search button. So right now, the again the traditional are out, but mind you, we have recruiters are very creative. Like they find ways of converting all these traditional forms of activities into something that can be done on the online platform. So utilizing Facebook for one, Facebook being one of our biggest, I would say, source of leads. So it has allowed us, again, the reach is now bigger, right? So since we can process remotely, we are not bounded by limitations that this person can only be, from these locations, right? Because we are able now to reach out to other areas which our traditional job fairs before were not able to reach out. Again, another thing is we can target based on, of course, the tools that's available within Facebook ads targeting. We are able now to identify and limit and target the kind of profiles or the kind of talent pool that we would want to consider for the jobs that we have. So we have been able to convert the job fair into a virtual job fairs, right? The events, we conduct regular events, online events. Even the things that we do traditionally with our referrals, we also do it already online. Now, one thing that's good in utilizing the online platform, it's very flexible, right? So you can the time of the day where you can have your job fair. It kind of gets customized to what you think the market would respond to. So we can do early morning virtual job fairs or late night, because that's where maybe the talent pool is readily available to join your job fairs. Even the outreach with our local government and community partners, it's also being done online already. Even the government agencies, which used to be, we know, very very traditional at that, they have already evolved into conducting all their community job fairs through the online channel. But one thing though, in the utilization of the online platform, one thing though that we've seen is that, like, to relate it to how Aris was mentioning earlier regarding scaling up with the online platform, you can easily scale up. So if you need, let's say you have a need of, let's say, maybe your requirement doubled. In the traditional recruitment activities, it's so hard for you to double the number of leads that you're generating, right? Because that means that you have to have more recruiters so that you can have more events, you can go to more places. But with the online platform, you can easily scale, right? So the budget that you would use, it's actually, you're spending more. The cost benefit wise, you're getting more leads when you put it in your online platforms, and you get wider reach. So the scalability, again, relating to what Aris mentioned earlier, the scalability is actually there. And there's a lot of other stuff that you can actually do if you have all your pipeline in your, I would say, online platform. The re-engagement becomes very easy, right? Sending SMS, sending them through their messenger. It kind of, instead of calling them one by one, you can just, send out the group message, or through just those ads through messenger. It, unlike before, you have to call one by one and say, hey, we have this event, please join us the event. Or you can just put your Zoom link on your page and say, this is the event that we have, just click and join. It becomes very easy. Even with how our employees send the referrals, they can just use also the messenger, right? The Facebook. So it has opened a lot of doors that allows us to really scale. And that's where I would say that's where a lot of the efficiency and the effectiveness and the cost benefit is coming from, where the fact that, if I would compare the kind of hiring that we were doing pre-pandemic, we're actually hiring more now compared to before.
Awesome. That's really interesting. I mean, I didn't even know about the fact that you can convert your job fairs and make it online. But I think, right now that people can't come together in a physical location, a lot of people are abandoning job fairs. So, you've opened my eyes to the fact that you can convert all of these events, make them online, and people will attend because, it's easier for them now to attend, and they can meet with you and learn more about you online. You can even read those resources because it's online and easily available to them. So that's on the candidate part. Let's take it to the recruiters. Aris, I'm curious to know, so how can automation make managing these volumes that you're getting from online events, like Cynthia mentioned, the Facebook ads? You're getting a lot of volume. So how can automation make it easy for your recruiters to be able to manage that volume in one space? Monitor those campaigns in one place, that sort of thing, because you still don't want your recruiters going to different places to monitor the performance of the Facebook ads they're running or the events they're running and everything. So how can automation make this easier for the recruiters?
Yeah, it's very important to note that recruitment never stops, but the recruiter has to sleep at some point. They don't operate 24 hours. So maybe during certain times of, of a month or a week, they really need to extend hours because they need to meet hiring targets. But we need to be able to leverage on something that will allow them to to take a break. Basically, we in TopPush we are able to look at candidate activity. We know that the number of leads that are collected on TalkPush never hits zero. It never does that. And what that means is the mechanism that allows our customers or allows companies to harvest and collect all of those applications from different sourcing channels. That mechanism happens without human intervention. So what activities are these? Typically companies would use different sourcing channels. They would have job boards, they would have social media, they would have referrals. Normally, you would download those leads from different sourcing channels and manually put them together into one spreadsheet, for example. That is one activity that has to be automated, because if you have to wait for someone to do those downloads, then that means that the lead might get cold. The behavior, especially for BPO hiring, I would say that candidates have this mentality that for them to get hired, they need to apply across several positions. Potentially several positions within the same company or several positions within different companies. So imagine that, it's really the fastest recruiter who could get to them would be able to convert them in the end. So, the step of collecting them, harvesting them, sending them a message, pre-screening them, booking them for an appointment, and even sending them instructions of what to expect or where to go next, or what are the assessments would be. Those are activities that if you rely on a recruiter, that would take time. If you need to hire 1,000 in a month, then definitely you need to be reaching out to, say, 50,000 people in a month. If you only have 10 people in the team, then it's very impossible for that team to be able to do that all by themselves. So that's really where automation comes in. To answer your question, automation allows you to automate the mundane and make sure that the recruiter is able to take a break. But in the process of doing so, they know that the recruitment never stops.
Awesome. That's awesome. So I love the part where you said that the recruiter has to sleep, really, because if not for automation, you're working round the clock to meet your hiring targets. Because I mean, you've been told, or you have to schedule so amount of interviews in a day, and you're looking at the fact that you're only human and you need to take a break. But when you add automation to the mix, I mean, I can those stages of recruitment can be automated, and your recruiters can focus on more valuable tasks, more meaningful tasks, like converting those have been scheduled, those have been interviewed, and making sure that they're the great match for your vacancies. So, which leads me to the last point of our discussion, the reducing time to hire. Ms. Cynthia, I'd like to know, like previously, what are the number of days it takes you to hire the number of people that you have to hire at the end of the day, and what has automation helped you achieve currently? Like, you used to have weeks, months before you can meet your targets, and what it is currently now.
Well, I would say that before, the targets would be like at least within a week you're supposed to at least convert the leads that would, like the leads that would come in Monday, you have at least until the end of the week to be able to convert that, right? But right now, with the help of automation, at least the initial outreach is being done already by the system, so that what gets into what the recruiters will be processing are typically what we call the hot candidates or the warm candidates, and they're easily converted already, right? So target still remains to be right now from 7 days, from 1 week, we're already within the range of 2 to 3 days conversion time. Now the additional the keep warm process is actually easier right now also with the use of automation, because it helps us ensure that our recruiters would always be in touch with the candidates, because there's always that waiting time before the candidates gets onboarded, right? So you kind of hire them within 2 to 3 days, but you need to make sure that they go through your other activities that is needed before they onboard. So that's also where the system comes into play, because we're able to ensure that there is that connection between us, the company recruiters, and the candidates. And at the same time, not only is the system able to ensure that we process candidates fast, not only the warm candidates, in fact, we can also convert cold candidates, right? So I think, like what we were talking about yesterday, that even those that have not been completely converted by the system, we are able to tap and we are able to convert still. So not only do you reduce the number of hiring days, but the number of conversions that you do within that time frame is also increasing, because you have technology that's helping you out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So thank you very much, Ms. Cynthia. I think this brings our discussion to a close. So I'll just call on Aris right now to do a small demo presentation of what TalkPush can help employers achieve, reducing their time to hire.
Can I add one more, Nikki, before we end? I know we're
Sure.
talking about automation, but in the entire formula, I would say in the entire formula, what is really important, it's technically 50-50, but I would say the remaining 50% really would be the recruiters themselves, right? If we don't have recruiters who will not embrace the technology, then you're screwed, right? If you don't have recruiters who see the difference that they make, I mean the passion behind the recruitment job, then it's not also gonna work. So I think let's also have that balance we're in. We have your people factor, you have your system factor, and they all have to be able to plug in together and be able to, and with that, you can actually meet your objectives. So again, let's not forget the fact that we have to enable also our recruiters. We have to make them embrace the technology. We have to make them understand how technology is going to help them. Because I know, Aris, you can relate to this. There are certain instances, especially when you're starting with automation, you get a lot of resistance from recruiters,
Yeah.
because they think that, the system is going to replace them. But, if recruiters will understand that the technology is something that will help them be good at what they're doing and be experts at what they do, and they can focus on really, the recruitment part of it, then you will have a very good and a perfect formula, I would say.
Yeah, I would
That's it.
agree. I
Thank
would
you.
agree. That happens everywhere. In our practice at TalkPush within the customer success function, we see that implementations fail because we always get that pushback from the recruiters themselves. Like you mentioned, Ms. Cynthia, sometimes they would feel like, oh, is this replacing my job? Am I gonna get fired because they have a robot now to replace my job? But that's not really the case. When we started working with iQor, that's really something that we had to establish at the top of the conversation, to say that this is a platform that allow you to become more efficient, for your recruiters to become more happier with their jobs. Because some might say that HR is a thankless job, but recruitment, I think you don't get a lot of gratitude also, because people, or the society kind of expects you to do your job as a recruiter. But and because you have to do a lot of those activities, sometimes you feel, it makes you feel depressed, like, oh, I'm gonna interview more people again. It's the same thing over and over again. But that's also one good thing that comes out of automation. You help them focus on high value tasks. You help them focus on upskilling themselves, maybe thinking about recruitment marketing, or maybe thinking about, well, how do I filter candidates better than what I used to, instead of just the administrative task of, okay, I'm going to be more efficient in sending messages or sending text blasts, or maybe calling people. That's really not what we want. We want them to feel like it's empowering them, as you said, Ms. Cynthia. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have one question from the audience, and they're asking, what are the cons and pros of using an automated system? I think, Aris, you'll be in the best position to answer that. So what are the cons and pros of using an automated system?
Yeah, good question. If it's a system that you just use out of the box, then most definitely it's something that can be counterproductive. It's important that when you deploy automation, how the market would potentially respond to it, because otherwise it would not be successful. So that's I started with the con, because it's really important for us to make sure that the system or the platform understands how local recruitment is in this context, understands what trends are, how candidates respond to it, how recruiters want to use it, and it should be able to meet changing times. Like, for example, in the last 2 years, everyone went virtually. Like, everyone has been working from home. This is the CRM, or this is the automation need to work, even if there are several changes in the workflows. So that should be one. But obviously the pros or the advantages of having it is those things that we mentioned earlier. It helps you to have a standard process because your output is consistent. It helps your team to become more consistent. It actually allows more transparency. I think Ms. Cynthia mentioned this earlier. When I was a recruiter, I would say that's the thing. We have our own notes, and if I'm gone, all my communications or all of my activities leaves with me. Sometimes recruiters right now still does that. Like, they have their own phones, they text candidates, and because it's not in one main system of record, sometimes another recruiter would reach out to the candidate only knowing that only to find out that that person has already been hired or already been tapped before, because there's no way to collaborate. There's no way to have one system to look at candidate histories. So yeah, I think those are the pros and cons of having automated systems.
Awesome. I think that's the only question that we have from the audience. So we'll then go on to a little demo from Aris. Aris, can you take it up?
All right. Okay. Let me just share my screen. Oops. I think you need to give me permission to share my screen. I'm not sure if that's you, Luis or Nikki. There you go. Okay. All right, everyone seeing my screen? I'm showing a screen which shows TopPush. At the top of our webinar earlier, Blanche did introduce that I lead the customer success function here at TopPush. TopPush is a recruitment automation platform. That's why I kept on talking about automation, because that's what we do in this company. I've been with the company for more than 6 years now, and I've really seen how recruitment systems and recruitment process have evolved, especially during the pandemic. And it's really important for teams to think about automation and efficiency, because in the end, that's what's gonna influence your hiring metrics. All right. So at TopPush, there are 3 things that we that very passionate about. Number 1, we help our customers build talent pipelines. Regardless where the talent is coming from, it's important for us to help them that they're in one system of record. We are able to help them map their talent and make sure that the talent is available and can be converted into hire. That's the first thing that we are very passionate about. Second thing is about automation. I kept on saying, I think I've said the word automation 100 times in the last 40 minutes. But we know for a fact at TalkPush that in recruitment, at least 60 to 70% of the things that a recruiter does day to day can be automated. And imagine if that's 60, 70%, you should be saving around 4 or 5 hours in a day. And then you can focus on something else. So that's really why we always talk about the value of automating administrative and clerical activities in recruitment. Third, and the last, but not the least, would be in the process of improving your recruitment teams, improving your process. Obviously, you delight your candidates. The most frustrating experience for a candidate is to not get a response from a recruiter. And I know that everyone in this audience would attest that at some point you applied to the company and you never heard back. Maybe you got a canned response like, "Thank you for applying. If you don't hear back from us, that means that you did not get the job," or something like that. And that translates to to frustrations for the candidates. So in the process of automating, you want to make sure that process is faster, it's fun, and in the end, you want to make sure that your candidates are happy. Because when you have happy candidates, it becomes a reflection of your employer brand. All right, what you're seeing on the screen right now on the right side is how the CRM looks like at TalkPush. It's available on a computer. It's also available on the phone. But essentially, what we do is we help our customers make sure that they harness their talent pool and make sure that they're able to use that talent pool as their competitive edge. Just last year alone, this is how much volume we've captured on TalkPush. More than 10 million candidates, more than 10 million messages, more than 300,000 hires recorded from all the customers around the globe, and we have customers in 15 countries globally. Just some of the customers that you're seeing on the screen right now. These are the customers that we work with. You see iQor there. So that's why we're very happy that we were graced by Cynthia today, because we've been working with iQor for a couple of years, among others. You would notice that you may be seeing some familiar names on the screen. We have customers in BPO, shared services companies, retail, as well as in financial services, and in many business centers. These customers really, they're very passionate about putting candidate experience first and make sure that they provide a good candidate experience for all of their talent pool. So in TalkPush, we help our customers build their talent pool on a different scale. You're seeing social media as the top. Ms. Cynthia mentioned earlier that for iQor, social media is one of their top source of leads. And that's because there's really so much people who's active on social media these days. If we were talking about sourcing channels maybe 3-4 years ago, some might say that it's job boards, maybe it's JobStreet for the Philippines, but it's no longer the case. We know how it's evolved, but regardless where the talent pool is coming from, we are able to harness them and convert them and connect with them on TalkPush, whether that's social media, job boards, referrals, or whatever. Still on the topic of connecting sourcing channels, with TalkPush, you can connect all of your sourcing channels. It may be coming from social media, from your career sites, from your referral channels like employer applicant referrals, or job boards, or really anywhere. Maybe it's a bus or a poster or a flyer or a vendor or a promodizer where you're getting your leads from. All of those can be automatically captured in TalkPush. TalkPush helps you sort them, screen them, and then move them through steps in the process. That's really where automation comes in. We are very proud about our chatbots at TalkPush. The chatbot is basically an extension of the software. It's the candidate-facing interface for TalkPush. Our chatbots are available on different messaging platforms, specifically in the Philippines. Obviously, Facebook Messenger is the most popular messaging channel, so most of our customers are harnessing Facebook Messenger, but it is available in different messaging platforms. So the way it works is if you have a Facebook page, we would basically help you enable a chatbot on the page, and that chatbot would basically perform like a virtual recruiter that processes your candidates 24/7. We help our customers convert a traditional journey. We've talked about this at length during this webinar, the many different steps in the process, which could take days, maybe 30 days to complete. We help you transform it into a much shorter, much leaner, much efficient process, which could take 3 days with the help of automation. Automation in TalkPush is called Autoflow. When you speak to our team, we will always talk about Autoflow, and that's really about helping your recruiters automate basically everything. 3 or 4 years ago, TalkPush can do some level of automation. We can shortlist and reject, but we know that recruitment is not linear. Like it branches out from one step to another. There's so many steps that can be automated and needs to be automated. And that's really where Autoflow comes in. We can automate pre-screening, we can automate scheduling, we can automate messaging, sending of assessment links, even retapping and re-engaging candidates who are falling off from each step of the process. Earlier when I said there are 60 to 70% activities in recruitment that can be automated, I'm referring to those activities, and that's really where Autoflow comes into play. Last but not the least, in TalkPush, if you're a manager, if you're a supervisor, if you're responsible for looking at your team's productivity, your funnel, and all your numbers, everything are tracked. It's one system of record that allows you to look at all your reports at a glance. If you're not using any platform for reporting, I'm sure that you're still relying on spreadsheets, which can also work. But obviously the spreadsheets are only as good as the updates. And if you need to do that update over and over again, then obviously that hampers the reporting. And you might not be able to detect patterns in your recruitment if you had to do the reports manually. With TalkPush, the analytics platform is embedded in the CRM, and managers will be able to access them in real time. That's it. That's TalkPush. I'm sure that that's a mouthful. You will get a recording of this webinar, but I would encourage everyone to scan the code if you're interested about learning more about TalkPush, what we do. You want to see it in action. You want to see me again, or maybe see Blanche or Nikki again. Please scan the QR code. It would take you to a page where you could book a demo, hear more from us, and then for us to show you how it works in real life. That's it.
Thank you, Aris. Thank you, Miss Cynthia, Nikki, for the very insightful discussion. I know that we have a couple of minutes left. So there's a poll that is showing on screen. If you're seeing it, the question is, how many days do your hiring process last? So we just want to get an understanding of what it looks like for most of our attendees. So, okay, I'm seeing a bunch of responses. 25, 60%, 50% is around 0 to 3 days. We have a bunch that is around the 20 to 30 days. That's quite long, we would say, but that's exactly what TalkPush is wanting to solve. It's lower the time to hire from 10 to 20 days to half of that, to even half of that. And that's exactly what TalkPush has been focusing on. I just wanted to say that iQor has been one of our very beloved customers. So it's really great to have heard from you, Miss Cynthia, and hear firsthand how TalkPush has really helped iQor. And hopefully most of the responses are coming from iQor. The 0 to 3 days. I think we could end the poll and launch. Let's see the results. Share results. So yes, 38% of the audience said it's around 0 to 3 days, 3 to 10 days for 29, and then there's the 10% that is hiring around 20 to 30 days. So for those who wants to learn how to shorten that even more, feel free to book a demo with us. And there you go. Just scan the QR code that you're seeing on screen. And if there aren't any questions, I'll stop sharing the results. That is it. Thank you again to everyone who attended. We're very happy to have had everyone here. It's been a great discussion. Thanks again to our panelists. And yes, see you at our next event. So we also put the link on the chat if you want to book a demo. So feel free to do so. And yes, thank you everyone. And we hope that you have a good day. We don't have to take up all the time, but see you at our next events. Thank you, Miss Cynthia. Thank you, Aris. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mila.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.